If you know anybody that needs to borrow a David Lynch Blu-ray or Criterion, just know I'm your guy. I got every single one, I promise. It's about time we ranked David Lynch's filmography. This has always scared me. When I do this, I try to add analysis and be as critical as I can be. David Lynch makes it really hard for you to be that way. Well, at least in this format. Maybe it would be easier if I did an hour breakdown like everybody else, but look, I'm just watching David Lynch movies, I'm reviewing them, and I'm going to tell you how I felt. I am going to try really hard to add analysis to all of these films, even the ones I don't really understand. Besides Inland Empire, man, I have no idea what that movie was. If I make a wrong interpretation, you are wrong. I am right. I cannot be wrong. This honestly just gives me an opportunity to talk about Twin Peaks, which has been my recent obsession for the last year. Lynch has become so iconic, he has his own term, Lynchian. We hear it overused in the review community all the time. So let's find out what actually is Lynchian. To me, there are 3 segments that really make up a Lynchian movie. We got dream segments, we got the whole beneath the surface there's something going on, and I always forget how to say this guy's name, Angelo Badalamenti. I really hope I didn't butcher it. I know he died pretty recently. His scores are fabulous. His scores are so memorable. I mean, come on, dude, he made the Twin Peaks score. That's all you need to know. I think he scores essentially every single David Lynch movie, but man, hell of a composer. David Lynch makes very confusing movies. My goal here is not to give you clarity. My goal here is to tell you how I felt about all of these movies. Point out some symbolism that I really liked. Let's get on with the list. Let's rank this crazy dude. I've been really busy recently, so these videos are harder to make. Please show some love, try to like or subscribe, do any of that crap that I never ask for. Be nice to me.
Also known as Dune.
Look man, I'm a certified Duner, okay? You can trust me on this one. I want to start out this section with, I do not want to blame David Lynch for this movie at all. I completely agree with the sentiment that if you do not get Final Cut, you cannot be blamed for a few problems. It just so happens that every problem in this movie is something I can place on the editing and on the cutting of the movie.
Dune, I started selling out even in the script phase, knowing I didn't have Final Cut.
I have read the novel twice. I absolutely love the new Denis Villeneuve films. This is the one I just cannot come around on. It's so obvious they try to just put too much into one film. The way the exposition is done, the way you blink and they're at the end of the book is just fascinating. I've seen this about 3 times now. I actually find the effects kind of endearing now. The tone he was going for is not what Denis was going for. Dare I say he wanted a little bit of a campy Dune? He does seem like a perfect fit for Dune as he loves developing worlds. And he had an opportunity to make a few distinct worlds. The few redeeming moments of this film are all rooted in seeing Twin Peaks characters as Dune characters. I also do love this goofy ass Baron, a huge misstep that I just can't really blame David Lynch for. At least David Lynch put guild navigators in this movie. I don't know if I can come around on this one, guys. It's gonna be really hard to motivate me to watch this a second time. I just finished my first viewing and man, oh man, what? I love most of David Lynch's work and I understand being confused is at the heart of all of his films. He presents films in dream fragments and aren't supposed to be linear stories. I am sure some people have written some great YouTube essays from this movie and have a way better understanding than me, but man, I was lost. My notes are completely empty after I watched this 3-hour film. I appreciate the work with the handheld digital camera, but this seems more like an experiment of Lynch's own transition from film to digital, more than a feature film. It's like Mulholland Drive without any of the interesting questions. There is no light in this film, which makes the darkness not that interesting to me. This movie just jumps into different portals and different perspectives, and there are a lot of really stunning scenes visually, but not enough for me to really ever revisit. I won't deny its craft, and I do love Jeremy Irons in a David Lynch film. I am just as confused as Laura Dern's character in this movie. The one Lynch movie that he did not write. Oddly, this seems like David Lynch's most experimental film, which is an extremely hilarious thing to say when he has a film like Inland Empire or Mulholland Drive or even Lost Highway. This is the least like anything in his filmography. This is about an old man traveling on his lawnmower to visit his brother who has suffered a stroke. Based on a true story. The only other film that I can compare this to in his filmography would have to be The Elephant Man, because it's really the only film he has that's just a straight up storytelling movie. Not much else besides storytelling. It's an authentic film with an authentic performance from Richard Farnsworth. He is the highlight of the film, and he is the glue of this film. I don't know why this family trusted David Lynch, of all people, with the story, but he did a damn good job. I just don't have many takeaways from this film besides it feeling like a warm local community hug. An odd addition, but a welcome addition to his filmography. What can I say about Eraserhead? The most famous debut has a lot to say, or nothing to say at all, depending on who you ask. I am going to be honest with you, I don't view David Lynch movies specifically for take-home messages. I watch them to experience something that isn't my reality, but also is very human. Everything he makes somehow masters this balance of not being in your world, but being relatable. I think Twin Peaks does this the best. Eraserhead, on the other hand, feels like it's kind of cheating. David Lynch loves exploring dark corners of his worlds, but I can't think of a film in his filmography that is entirely dark like this. I guess it's about fatherhood, but even he's denied anyone even knows what this is truly about.
Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
We'll elaborate on that.
No, I won't. A lot of times, I don't know the meaning of the idea, and it drives me crazy.
By the way, it's totally fine to make a movie without exactly knowing what your idea is about. I like how David Lynch talks about how he just had this idea and he wanted to put it into a movie and he didn't really know what it all meant. That whole journey is really fascinating to me. Lots of funny behind the scenes for this film, especially with this cat.
It led me to one day calling a veterinarian. And I asked him if he had a dead cat. Tar preserves things. And the cat has served many purposes. I lowered this cat in there, and then about a year later came back and pulled the wire, and the cat came out. But studying this cat was kind of, important.
I love the tone created in this film, and it's definitely one of the more unique films ever made. And full transparency, I have seen this movie like 6 times, and I do really enjoy this film. I just don't think it's remotely near the top of his game, which is fine, it's his debut, and it's a very ambitious debut. Justice for the Eraserhead baby. I watched this for the first time to make this video. I owned it on Blu-ray and everything, but never got around to it. I was shocked at how good this film really was. The Elephant Man is a film about a man with a disfigured face that is eventually rescued by a scientist. The man was abused and used for entertainment in the carnival industry, controlled by a truly evil owner. With Mel Brooks seeking out David Lynch for this movie, I knew this could only be so dark, right? Man, there is one scene in this movie where they break into the Elephant Man's room, and I wanted to close my eyes.
Yeah, that's enough for a man.
It's so damn cruel, yet this seems to be David Lynch's most sunny and hopeful movie. I know, funny to call this movie sunny when it's in black and white. And I'm a sucker for black and white cinematography. The tears in black and white are gorgeous. I love how it also adds another layer of grotesque nature to the Elephant Man, and the makeup is just phenomenal. I love a lot of the dialogue in this film, especially with the scientist not being sure if he's any better than the carnival owner. And saying this movie didn't win any Oscars because of Roman Polanski. Oh, Mulholland Drive, one of my first loves. When I started to get really into film, I was always intrigued by David Lynch's filmography. This ended up being the first one I watched, and wow, was I confused. First off, I was like, why is the acting like that?
Remember last night? Well, sometimes she's wrong, but if there is trouble, get rid of it.
And that's no shade at the performances in the film. Once you've watched this movie about 10 times like me, you start to get more and more every time, and realize why everyone's acting in the way they are. Mulholland Drive is a Hollywood noir that is known as one of the most confusing movies to ever exist. I do think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I get where they're coming from.
Next week, I'm going to take that picture to the University of Colorado on DVD. We're going to spend 10 hours over a week going through it a shot at a time, and at the end, I'll be able to understand it.
You better believe it. You already do understand it. Get a lot of good coffee, though, and some good food.
I miss Roger so much, man. I wish we had this voice today. I'm obsessed with this idea of Lynch showing us films that are so heavily involved with dreams, as it takes us out of our comfort zone. It makes them all inherently cinematic because it's not how people act or talk. It tackles themes of the romanticism towards Hollywood. It plays with your preconceived notions of Hollywood.
This is the girl.
And of his dream films. This plays out most like a dream, especially when you get towards the end and the fragments start getting scattered and eventually falling into place. No hay banda, am I right?
No hay banda!
I'm usually critical of movie breakdown videos on YouTube, but I do believe there is a lot in this film that can be better understood through a super critical lens. Even though I believe the whole no hay banda is a bit of a warning to not do things like this. We don't have to understand everything. This film is an illusion, and you don't need to understand every angle to every scene. It's a lovely film. Why is the music in this movie so rad? Man, this movie absolutely floored me and shocked me. Lost Highway is another super confusing David Lynch movie, but it feels like this is a well-orchestrated masterpiece on the dangers of masculinity. We follow a sax player that suspects his wife of cheating, and then we follow what we can only assume is another version of the sax player where he's the man. He's got aura. Women seek him. The lovemaking he has is passionate. Unlike with his real life where they fail at it. He is roped into evil instead of being evil. This felt like Inland Empire to me, but obviously tackling much different themes. I love how this film reminds me of other films, like Naked Lunch and Vertigo. Patricia Arquette plays two women with different colored hair, like in Vertigo, and the man kills his wife, then tries tackling internal emotions by imagining a different life with the same woman, different name, like in Naked Lunch. Naked Lunch was about confronting homosexuality and being comfortable with it. This is about the character not being able to take blame for his life.
I like to remember things my own way.
Creating excuses and imagining a better life through a more masculine life. In the imaginary life, he even creates violence, which is also joked about as the peak of masculinity. Being called to action in front of a gorgeous woman, the male dream. I have to mention the sound of this film as well, because most of the film is entirely silent. Then boom, loud sax, or boom, loud German metal. This movie is so quiet, I decided to pull up the waveforms for this movie and Mulholland Drive. Look how different these two movies are. Shows you how much effort was put into making this movie this quiet. Just masterful stuff. I love the creepy mystery dude too. I love him representing evil. Evil is creating the recordings in the house, symbolizing that Fred and Renee both have evil to them. Renee has evil shown by the cheating, but confirmed with her turning into the mystery man at one point. Lynch surprises me again, man. I did not expect to love this movie as much as I did, and it's at number 4. No film of David Lynch's has shocked me more than Wild at Heart. This was my first time, and man was I enthralled by this movie. Wild at Heart is about lovers Sailor and Lula, who are on the run from Lula's crazy-ass mother. This is David Lynch's most adult film in his filmography. It's non-stop lovemaking and assault, but with this looming motif of the Wizard of Oz. It doesn't take too much critical thought to classify each character in this movie as someone from the Wizard of Oz. Lula's mom being the Wicked Witch, the road to Nola being the Yellow Brick Road, Willem Dafoe's absolutely evil character being Oz, as he is full of hope but also full of lies. Every time I watch these supporting Dafoe roles, I'm like, man, this is my favorite yet. This has to be up there. Just look how evil this man is.
Say it. Say it.
My last Dafoe supporting role like this was Existence, and man, does he just capture these moments. Side note, I ranked all of David Cronenberg's movies pretty recently as well. That video is like 40 minutes. If you got time, go for it, man. I love the reds and the fire and the passion of this movie. The editing is very inspired, it's focused. It's like if The Wizard of Oz was rad as hell. Nicolas Cage sings songs, beats up scummy dudes, jumps on cars. I cried, I laughed. What a wonderful film. After watching this film for like the 5th time, I can say this is the formula for David Lynch's success. It's wacky, it's full of colorful characters with fantastic and memorable performances. It's got great motifs and symbolism. It's Lynch doing the "there is darkness beneath the happy surface" to perfection. It's got dream logic. It's blue velvet, baby. I can firmly say this is one of my first films I've ever watched with film brain, if that makes any sense. After I shifted away from watching things like Harry Potter and Ice Age as a kid, I remember where I was the first time I watched this. Lynch has so many fantastic characters in his filmography, including Twin Peaks. But Kyle MacLachlan in Blue Velvet is probably my favorite next to Dale Cooper. This whole film kind of reminds me of what is to come in Twin Peaks. I love how this character is a little ambiguous. Why is he so bored that he's willing to investigate this woman? I like this idea that he is trying to become a grown-up with his father currently in the hospital. He's at a crossroads. The whole film is him confronting how there is more evil in the world than he previously believed.
Why are there people like Frank? Why is there so much trouble in this world?
So he decides to face the evil head-on with a quote, battle against Frank Booth. As I said before, I really love the symbolism in this film, especially with the choice of beer everyone drinks. There are some breakdowns online of this, but I'll give you a quick summary, and yes, it's Freudian. Jeffrey drinks Heineken, which is considered a little higher end beer, something that the working class man wouldn't drink on a normal day.
What kind of beer do you like? Heineken! Heineken!
The detective drinks Budweiser, which is the working man's beer. A little bit above absolute piss level beer, but a cheap option. Then we have Frank, drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon!
The bottom of the barrel, what the poor man drinks. Sorry if you love PBR, it's the cheapest option and commonly regarded as the worst beer. I just love me some symbolism, man. Laura Dern is also fantastic in this film, and you can see David Lynch dies on the Laura Dern Hill. Excellent film. I wanted to give Twin Peaks an honorable mention because I understand it's not a film, but to me, Twin Peaks is kind of the glue in David Lynch's entire career. It would feel wrong to not talk about David Lynch's biggest work. I recently fell in love with the show and watched all of it for the first time, and showing other people this show can be pretty fun if they know nothing about it. What I love most about Twin Peaks are rooted in two things here: the characters and the space it occupied. You name a character, I could see how they are your favorite. You love Dale Cooper, I get it. Who wouldn't love the wholesome coffee-loving detective? You love Laura Palmer even though she is dead in the entire show? I get it. We get a lot of context about her and her mystery is all the intrigue you need. You love Bob? I get it. He's crazy. If you ever talk to a Twin Peaks fan, you could talk hours about any character. The log lady, any of the waitresses, Bobby, Ben Horn, they're all so dense and fun, and you don't know how they all fit in the puzzle. Then we get to the space it occupies, what the show is. The show is essentially a spoof of daytime television like Young and the Restless. And you can see why the world of Twin Peaks, the Double R, the Great Northern, One-Eyed Jacks, you gotta love the world. I'm gonna cut it short here, I just had to mention it. I absolutely am enthralled by Twin Peaks. Now, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is a movie, so I don't feel bad talking about it. I got to see this bad boy in a theater recently, and man, I know people love throwing the phrase magnum opus around so much, but man, this is a magnum opus about abuse, man. The story of Laura Palmer slowly becomes a story about a woman with mental illness losing her mind. That is at least my interpretation. There is no objective way to look at what happened, and every interpretation has holes, which makes this show and movie timeless. Yeah, the whole David Bowie stuff is a little weird and explored better in The Return, but this entire package is quite a package. First off, David Lynch smashing the TV is so awesome at the beginning of the movie. It's a loud statement early of "screw you networks, this is my show and I'm a filmmaker. Here's a film." Fire Walk With Me is one of the darkest films ever made. Watching this woman's descent and the demise that you know is coming in the world we love so much is maybe the peak of payoffs. I can't think of a better payoff for someone's investment in a show or a film series. Twin Peaks has always been somewhat about exploring where suburbia can go wrong, and how it's not all sunshine and rainbows in these environments. But this movie feels like a huge statement on darkness next to the light. The final shot in Fire Walk with Me is hard to describe for me. As corny as it sounds, it's transcendent. For Lynch to make a film where we know the ending decently well and makes us fall in love with the journey, makes us fall in love with the full removal of the blinds we watch Twin Peaks through, is, I believe, one of the most impressive accomplishments of any director. What movie do you think I didn't show enough love? What's y'all's favorite David Lynch movie? I gotta go put away some Blu-rays, cause man, that's like half of my shelf. I'll see y'all later.